I guess since you recorded, might as well start. Does anyone want to run this meeting? No, nobody. All right, I'm not seeing a hand. Let's go ahead, get started then. So please jot down your name if you haven't. Happy New Year, everybody. I saw a couple of things on the agenda. So if you have anything you'd like to discuss, please add to the agenda. We're going to go through the sequence right now. So the first topic is the design doc. Where would it go? Ian, did you want to lead that topic? I think you might put it there. Or maybe Tim.
Well, I heard my name. What's up, guys?
Okay, the first topic is where is the design doc should go. So I was wondering if one of you wants to lead the discussion for that topic. Let me actually share my screen so we know what we are talking about.
Oh yeah, no, I'm happy to take this unless you want to, Ian. Okay. Yeah, no, there was some conversation. You know, we have a couple of, and Danny, I think you almost have a proposal up too. But there's some in-flight work that it would be nice to capture as a design doc, which leads to the question of where should they live. I don't think this is. I think entry is fine for the time being, and that's kind of what we've already been doing for open PRs, unless anyone has some objections.
No, I like it. Yeah, in GitHub.
Is there any, I like it in GitHub. I guess here's a follow-on question. I know there's a lot of decisions coming quick and fast right now, but maybe, I guess my question is, for some of these like larger questions, are they purely GitHub based, or is it GitHub plus like a link to the current Slack channel on CNCF? So that, you know, a wider set of people can view them.
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly create like a discussion in GitHub and publicize it. Yeah, I guess publicize in the CNCF just to make sure people that couldn't join this meeting have some visibility. That works for me.
Yeah, also I guess if it's a big design doc, it might be good to bring it up here in the meeting too. So if people didn't have time to attend the meeting, they can always look at the notes to see what's going on. Is there anything relevant to them?
Well, I think a lot of decisions that have been made recently are probably not quite to that level, but hopefully, I mean, I think there's some types of questions about how, like if they're formative or I don't know quite the right word, but sufficiently large, then I think bringing it to this meeting and also like being on Slack seems to make sense.
Yeah, like for instance, like what Daniel is putting out as a proposal, I think that is significant and also cross-cutting to multiple projects might be worth bringing it up here just for awareness. And if people are interested, they can follow up with Daniel offline. Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of that's impactful at the moment. All right. I saw someone, I think Ian, thank you for taking the notes. So I think the decision, if we're good with the decision, let's moving on to the next topic, which is DCO with CLA. Ian, go ahead.
Yeah. So we did a little demo of DCO in the community repo, and it's not super great. It sort of is a continuous ongoing cost for every commit, and it's a problem with your commit that you can't fix easily without doing a little bit of like Git work, which, like, if we're trying to attract new contributors, that Git work maybe not the most straightforward, and maybe it's scary for them to do. So I did pull DCO out of the community repo for now, and figured we should revisit it in light of that. I think the CNCF, for whatever reason, is sort of pushing people that way, but CLA for developers, I think, is just a much nicer experience, if we're being honest. So I don't know if other people have thoughts on that. I actually also don't know if we need to spend time on this, if it's relevant for Sandbox or not. Maybe we can just defer it if it's not relevant for Sandbox.
Yeah, +1 on defer. I'm actually just looking at our Sandbox issue right now, which I will provide a link in the meeting minutes. If you don't have a link handy, I actually don't see this as a requirement. And so I think it's safe to defer. Yeah.
Do you think we could start with the CLA, then revisit this when we have sort of more, like once we're out of bootstrap phase and there's hopefully more different sets of people sort of coming through and contributing, then we can reassess it? Because like a CLA, at least with the current set of people who have been historically contributing to this project, we could probably get that pretty quickly. Yeah. Exactly, like use easy CLA or something.
So for the CLA, Ian, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought we had some challenge in using it before it's accepted as a CNCF project.
Yeah, there was a little bit of like, you can't just say I'm using easy CLA. You need to sort of get permission from Linux Foundation, from what I can see. And they were like, why are you trying to get permission for this? And
Yeah.
they wanted to kick it over to some other people, and it was kind of a whole mess. I don't know what the resolution would be to that. I just closed the ticket eventually because it seemed like maybe DCO would be a good alternative. We could certainly like reopen that, but if it's not required, perhaps
Then
nothing is the lowest amount of work that we could do for now. And
yeah, that's my thought. And also when we are accepted, if they wants to do easy CLA, it will be a lot easy for us to do because we are a official CNCF project. I mean, same as this meeting recording, right? Ian and I had to spend hours to figure out how to get a meeting that we can record and we can access. But the moment that you become a CNCF project, you get all that resource for free. So I think this one is one of the thing that it's just so much easy to defer once you have the status with CNCF. All right. With that, I think I saw some head nods. Let's go ahead, defer and look at the easy CLA again once it's accepted as a CNCF project. The next topic, if we're okay to move on, is commit verification. Ian, did you also add that one?
I did. Yeah. So often confused with DCO, it seems. Unrelated. This is something that the CNCF recommends, GitHub recommends. Most everyone I'd talked to prior to working on this was like, yeah, we expect that on open source projects to be a thing soon. So I just went ahead and like enabled it, but then there was a shocking amount of pushback. So I thought we would bring it up if people have a good reason to like get rid of it or whatever for a decision point.
to just clarify, this is GPG signing your commits. Is that sort of the scope here?
It is the cryptographic signature. We'll say it that way because Jenny did the research. She found out you can sign them with SSH. So
Yeah, I'm curious what the pushback was because it should be just a one-time setup, right? And then every commit is signed. So it should be pretty easy.
yeah,
Was there pushback against just doing that?
it was basically the same thing as DCO, which is that if you submit it and here we have someone who's pushing back a little bit. So Denyon, would you like to explain your reasoning, and then I don't get it wrong when I paraphrase?
Yeah, so I mean, it's the first time that I had to kind of go through this process when I committed to the repo here recently. So it's just kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop. And yeah, I mean, I just think it's like one more hurdle that people have to jump through to be involved in the project. Like for me, like especially when a project is young, like one of the critical tenets of the project is how easy can a developer that's like window shopping, right? Think about window shopping. That goes by, looks at our window and wants to walk in and like buy something, right? And so we need to make it as simple as possible, and like key aspects, you know, that I've always felt are important as it relates to this topic is like, you know, good README, good developer onboard documentation, and just reducing as many hurdles as possible. And so like this particular process, because I hadn't done it before, it was like, oh, wait a second. And because I'm committed to the project, it's like, okay, let me go through it. And like 15, 20 minutes later, got things set up, everything good, great. But yeah, I could see some, potential contributors just being like, oh wait, what's going on? Nope, I'm off to doing something else. Or okay, I'll get back to it, then get pulled into something else, and it just turns into a low priority, right? And so that's kind of some additional context from my standpoint.
And this is not a requirement for being a CNCF project, to my understanding. Is that correct? Because I think, Ian, I talked to you about it still doesn't actually have this. And same as Daniel, I also run into this in one of my PR because I was using GitHub Desktop and it wasn't set up properly. And it took quite some time to fix it. I think, Ian, you actually helped me fix it because there's like 60 commits associated with it. I agree. I mean, the hurdle is there. Unless it's your day job, then you got to set it up. But for casual contributor, it is a hurdle.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think a lot of folks in Istio just do it of their own volition, but it is not a strict requirement. As far as I know, it's still not a requirement for Kubernetes, although the Kubernetes community is actively debating whether it should be a requirement right now, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Let's have a tracker issue. If there's some upstream issue that's, you know, a decision's going to be made, let's create our own issue that references that issue. And if it's something where it's like, hey, let's in the documentation say this isn't required, but you know, if you'd like to, it's recommended. Here's how you do it. But again, you know, whatever we can do to make this process as simple as possible, right? Because again, like most new contributors, they're going to fix something easy, right? You know, a simple bug or doc fix, something that, you know, takes them a handful of minutes. And if they end up, you know, fumbling around just trying to get the PR committed because of you know, cryptographic signing requirements, like
yeah, so I was thinking about that. One option that we have is to make it like a requirement for reviewer or maintainer, but not actually like a CI check. And the reason I would say that is because, you know, Alice rocks up she's got a cool PR that fixes something that's bothering her. She's going to get a high level of scrutiny because she's new. Nathan rocks up with something, he might get a little bit less scrutiny because Nathan's well known. So knowing that the commit actually came from Nathan, not someone who got access to an account or whatever, might be helpful because there is familiarity with maintainers and they may actually get a different level of scrutiny. So that's just one option that's kind of middle ground that I was thinking of.
But do we need to be innovative for this? I prefer to keep it as simple as possible.
Yes, simple as possible.
not-
Let's focus.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Flynn.
This is not, well, we can make a differentiator. Hey, kgateway is great. I can generate marketing hype, or I can attract people to, to pay attention to our project. So I'd rather, this is like infrastructure cost of running a project. I'd rather keep it minimum and boring as possible.
Yeah, like I said, sorry, Nathan. Like I said, let's have an issue open that we could just say, hey, there's something that we did before, we disabled with using this PR. Reference the upstream discussion within the Kubernetes community. We just kind of have it sit around to say, hey, if you're interested in having this functionality, +1 this issue, and we could kind of track it. But yeah. Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, no, I like the general space, and I agree so great discussion around what does it take for someone to start becoming a contributor, right? To everyone's point, especially Danians, you want it to be real easy. So I totally agree. Let's backlog an issue, fine. But I think Ian's point about trust, right? So every bit of trust in something that sits on your, in between all your network calls, to me seems kind of valuable. So I don't necessarily want to close this in favor of we're just going to do some upstream, because I think this idea of saying if you are of sufficient, like at some level, we're going ask that, as part of your contribution process. I don't know how we programmatically check it, but like have something saying that you in GitHub you can check a box saying like paranoid mode or whatever it is, that basically says if I don't sign this commit, make it scream to the world, right? Because if some tier is the level where you get approval status, and you want to make sure that the code you're running that intercepts all your calls is valid, right? Personally, it makes me feel better as an operator of, as an operator who is deploying this gateway. I'm not saying we have to do it, but if people, a little bit of pain, like contributor, where it's like you have to do an extra 10 steps when you've already been contributing a lot, put in a PR, and there's like a well-known process, I'm not so against, honestly. So we can still backlog it, but that's just, I want to get my 2 cents out around sort of what Ian said, I think is really, really interesting.
So do we have any, if we choose to do that, do we even have resource and people willing to make that change? Because I think everybody also have a lot of priorities too. This is something we could potentially defer until we see a new contributor come on board.
Yeah, I mean, we could defer it. It's fine. I personally really like seeing the green verified sign, so I'm biased and have been doing this. And I know there's a little bit of pain where I did not let my I use DPG signing personally, and I don't have it like fully saved. So if I do have, it does slow down the dev flow a little bit where I have to remember to put my password in. But I like the extra confidence that it gives, and the green badge that says verified. So that's just my 2 cents. I know it's not super operational, but yeah.
All right. So maybe we can jot this down as a desire. When we see new contributors come to the project, maybe we could potentially hash out a process to build more confidence. So far, I guess I'm not seeing a lot of new contributors. If you guys correct me if I'm wrong, if you see it differently. Yeah. Ian, would that be reasonable?
I'm not sure I understand the decision. Is it to just leave it as it is until we see that it is a problem then?
Okay, so the commit verification, is it just a toggle on the org level to enable and disable?
You can do it per branch. Also, people can personally do it themselves to enforce it. And I don't think anyone, so I think everyone, I don't want to speak for everyone, but so people can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think everyone's fine saying contributors, people who want to contribute code by
Mhm.
default should not have to worry about this.
Yeah.
But we should have a tracking issue that looks at Kubernetes, and if they change, we
I
can
like
update, right?
Yeah, I like
The-
that.
To my understanding, or at least the place that I was arguing for, so I'm going to be very selfish and sort of rehash this again, is where there's a difference between different tiers of like project contribution.
Mhm.
And there is some claim that maybe this is something for maintainers. To be a maintainer, maybe we push something. So that's to me the open question, but also I don't think it's critical. So I'm happy to move on and backlog that as well as as a thing that maybe we revisit, as many things the backlog do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree with what you said. So basically, we don't require commit verification and log a issue and then defer that as we see if other projects take action on this, follow like guidance of some of the other leading CNCF projects. All right. Should we move on to the next topic, or is there anything more we want to discuss on this commit verification? Thank you all for the input on the chats also. So naming, I will update you all that I think I shared with some of you. We went ahead, open a sandbox issue, which is 319. We're hoping to get it reviewed and voted by the TLC in March. I've also went ahead close our incubation issue because we can't be in both sandbox and incubation application. As far as naming, I've run through the kgateway naming to Dims, who is a CNCF TLC member, and also he was a former Kubernetes steering committee member. I'm sure Daniel knows him. I've also Louis has run a name by Rob Scott and also Tim Hawken. So Rob was pretty favorable of the name of kgateway. Tim said he can live with it. He's not a big fan of it, but he didn't think he'll be able to, he would block us. So there was one person on the Kubernetes steering committee, Ben. I'm going to run that by him. And maybe one or two other person on the CNCF TOC. But based on the data we collect, we don't believe it's an issue with the name of kgateway. And if we don't see the issue, I'm going to go ahead update 319 with kgateway name, and then we can start having our team to go into the GitHub and update the name and the documentation repo and everything accordingly. Any questions on this? All right, I will keep you all updated. Finger crossed we'll get the name finish up by end of this week or early next week, the latest. And then after that, we still need to figure out the org name. I know Nathan and Ian, you guys had some discussion on the org name. So once the project name is figured out, we'll have to sort that out next. All right, we have 2 minutes left. Does anybody wants to bring up anything? Just so everyone knows, today, Ian and I and a few other people had some discussion about bring kgateway as a waypoint to Istio ambient. So I wrote up a simple issue on that. Certainly depends on bandwidth and availability, but it's something it will be interesting for the project to consider. Anything else from anybody? If not, see you next week. Thanks so much for joining. Bye.
Right, thanks.